Hello and a very warm welcome to this Youth Research Dialogue, which is part of our thematic online series of evidence-based youth research findings. My name is Carmen Teubel. I'm the project manager and coordinator of the European Youth Research Network, REI, which is hosted and coordinated by the Finnish National Agency for Education. The REI network currently involves 35 partners, including national agencies for the European youth programs and the national research partners. And REI is researching the impact of the European Youth Programme since 2009. If you want to know more about our research activities and projects, you can check out our website, also researchyouth.net. Today our focus will be on the European Solidarity Corps Programme. More specifically, we will take a look at the implementation of the programme, so having really an inside discussion. Also at its opportunities and limitations. One of the REI projects REI is conducting is the monitoring of the European Solidarity Corps, and the network is currently preparing the surveys with beneficiaries and young people which are involved in the Solidarity Corps program, and they will be open in the second half of May of this year and will be available in more than 25 languages. So this is a bit a future outlook, what REI is doing when it comes to research on the European Solidarity Corps. Today, we will hear about a different strand, about the thematic study on the Solidarity Corps. We will hear about interviews with relevant stakeholders within the program conducted by the REI transnational research team. The analysis itself is not published yet, so you will get a first sneak peek today. And this is done by Tanja Strecker, who will join us today and present the findings. She is part of the REI transnational research team, which is based at Youth Policy Labs, is a small research agency and think tank. And she is also an associated lecturer at the University of Leiden. So welcome and great to have you here, Tanja. Our discussion will be also enriched, as always, by a guest speaker. Annina Kurki is a facilitator and a trainer in the fields of youth work, youth, and in the European youth programs. She also works on participatory development of services and processes. And today she joins us as she is the author of a recent analysis on networking and training activities within the European Solidarity Corps, which has been previously published by the SALTO European Solidarity Corps Resource Center. So welcome also and great to have you. Our team today is, as always, Domagoj Moric, who is responsible for the digital facilitation. And I'm very happy to introduce also our new moderator, Leena Surpe. She works in the Finnish Red Cross as a director of the youth shelters, but she has been involved for years in the field of youth research as a researcher, as a research director, but also civic activist. So really great that you're part of our team, Leena. Now, without much further ado, I wish you an enriching and informative dialogue, and we invite you, as always, to contribute also with your questions and comments in Facebook, YouTube, and Mentimeter. So, Leena, now to you.
Thank you, Carmen. Hello, everybody, and welcome from my part as well. It's really a pleasure to join the team of the moderators of the Youth Research Dialogues. Thank you for inviting me. And now to our topic of today's dialogue. Solidarity can be seen as one of the most used and also one of the oldest concepts in the description of European community. It has always been, at the same time, both local, national, European, and a global matter, both as an ethical and political requirement, and also as a force for civic action. In today's Europe and the globe, concept of solidarity is at the same time an increasingly important but also controversial principle of our social life. Our time doesn't leave anyone alone with the question of where we belong, what are our social ties like, or who we are attached to. We are faced with new demands for solidarity in a situation where we both advocate for the European identity and values and at the same time face the opportunities of and conflicts of multi-ethnic societies in a globalizing world. It is in this controversial situation where the Erasmus Plus Solidarity Corps program was also created. The value base of the program's official documents is strongly in equality and inclusion and in strengthening the European identity, whatever that means in today's increasingly diverse Europe. Now we will hear critically important research-based reflections on the Solidarity Corps program, both from local and national viewpoints. As the title suggests today, the panelists examine the program from the perspectives of both opportunities and limitations. Before we start, a quick reminder. As always, we invite you to ask questions either on the Facebook or YouTube chats or via Mentimeter. Simply go to menti.com and type in the code which is displayed now in the screen. And our first speaker is Tanja Strecker from the RAY Transnational Research Team. Please, Tanja.
Hello. Here is my presentation. Thank you very much for the introduction. And next slide, please. Today I will tell you a bit of the study, the second thematic study we did about the Solidarity Corps, based on interviews with national agencies, beneficiary and umbrella organizations and support structures. And the main finding we wanted to highlight here was that the program has a great potential, but its implementation does not use it completely at the moment. This is also the case for inclusion. Inclusion is a main future, but also a main challenge of the program. And in the remainder of this presentation, I would like to focus on this aspect concretely. Next slide, please. So here you can see different thresholds. Our stakeholders, the stakeholders we interviewed, identified for young people participating in the solidarity activities strand in this program. So mainly the bureaucracy and English-only material are a threshold for everybody, but then there are additional thresholds depending on the action type. And next, please. What is important here is that what is a threshold for some is a reward or an insuperable obstacle for others. So it's not about demolishing the staircase altogether, but about keeping the thresholds in mind and offering the additional support when it's needed. And also keeping in mind that, for example, mobility can be very rewarding and attractive for some, off-putting for others, but it can also be impossible for some. So it can be an insuperable obstacle, for example, when you cannot cross borders for legal reasons, all that kind of thing. Next slide, please. This is a quote from one of our interviewees saying, "Everything is put on the organizations, also more responsibility for inclusiveness. There are great organizations doing excellent work, but you can't leave this solely to the organizations." So here we already see the high responsibility organizations have for the inclusiveness of the program at the moment. And next slide. And when analyzing the different challenges our stakeholders identified in the interviews and looking at the messages that are in the air towards organizations thinking of engaging youth with fewer opportunities, we found that these messages are also quite daunting. So, for example, youth with fewer opportunities need special support. You, as an organization, you have to give this support. The additional funding is insufficient, and if you can't offer the support, don't take them. And of course, the idea behind these messages is that these stakeholders are critical with the program and want to show where it can be improved. And they also want to make sure that the youth with fewer opportunities receive the support they need and in the best possible way. So it's not the idea to be exclusive. And in an ideal world, there would then be another organization taking that young person in, so everybody would be able to participate. But in reality, it may then happen that organizations reject young people with few opportunities, and they can't find placements to actually take part in the program. So it could actually lead to factual exclusion of at least certain profiles of youth with few opportunities. Next slide. So we thought about how to change this on a systematic level, what structural changes would be helpful, and how these could then help to change these messages. For example, if there was an initial support needs assessment happening, rather than telling organizations about huge support needs in a very general way, we could say, this concrete applicant requires additional support with this and that. This is the additional funding you receive to offer this support. Of course, if the funding was increased, then it could also be sufficient. But if it wasn't, then you could see at least right away what was missing. All of us together will give this support. So this also refers to local support structures like social services or other organizations working in the locality helping in attending the youth. But it also refers to promotion, for example. And for example, the European Commission and also national agencies could engage better or more in the promotion, for example, preparing inclusive promotion material, showing youth with few opportunities in the material. So the message is not only this program exists, but this program is for you, come and apply. And then the final message could be, get in touch, should you need support to see if you can attend this youth. So there would still be organizations unable to attend certain youth, of course, but we believe that with these structural changes, more organizations would be able to attend youth with few opportunities, and more organizations would feel confident in attending this youth. So the whole program could be a bit more inclusive if this could happen. And final slide. Thank you very much. That was my input.
Thank you very much, Tanja, for your really inspiring speech. And now I give the floor to our second speaker, Annina Kurki. Please, Annika.
Hello, hello. So I'm Annina, and I'm happy to be here with you today. And I'm here to present our analysis that was conducted last autumn. And this is analysis about networking activities, which is called also NET. And that is one of the instruments that European Solidarity Corps program has. And it is a tool that is managed by national agencies or SALTOs, and it's the networking tool. And the aim is to bring organization and people together to learn, share, and build partnerships. The format can be seminar or training course or study visit. And those activities can be international or national, but in this study, we actually focused on international networking activities. So basically, the NET activities are serving the European Solidarity Corps program. And through those NET activities, the field can get better understanding how to use the program, how to make quality project, but it also brings people and organizations together to tackle important topics, what are the core of the European Solidarity Corps program. And I want to highlight that this analysis that we did was made for inner use of national agencies to help them to plan and structure the NET activities. First, we made an overview of already implemented activities from years 20 to 22, and we looked based on quantitative materials, what kind of activities has been offered, based on type, based on content, and based on participants. And after that, we deepened our analysis through interviews with NA officers who are responsible of NET activities. And during that, we tackled COVID times, content of the activities, monitoring the activities, and how the future of the NET activities seems to be. And all this just to get a clear picture what has been done and how to plan the upcoming activities. And then just to summarize a bit of the results of the analysis. So it seems that those networking activities are very well plugged in time, and the content of the activities is also reflecting the societal situations. It gives a picture that actually organizations, they need help and support and training how to use the program and how to make quality projects. It also gives a picture that a relative new program has still work to do defining the main important topics like solidarity and also those new priorities like digital transformation and environmental elements. What is that in context of Solidarity Core? But on the other hand, it gives a picture that inclusion has a firm part of being part of the Solidarity Core program, because the net activities, they are tackling a lot of inclusion. And it seems that there is a need and willingness to bring in all kinds of organization and participants. Well, the feeling of the future seems to be positive, even there is some challenges, like how to find relevant, well-profiled participants to join the networking activities. And further, how to spread the word and make the European Solidarity Core program even more visible. How to attract more potential organizations to explore the possibilities of the program. So this was my short sneak peek, and now back to the studio with Leena.
Thank you very much also for you, Annina. And after these two excellent presentations, we go into our dialogue. I think it's very proper and natural to start with a question of inclusion as one of the promise and as a challenge for this Solidarity Core program. And both of you took up that inclusion is one of the key issues, also key issues for the promise and for the success of this program. Annina, you said in your report and your presentation that inclusion is a firm part of the program. Can you elaborate a bit more concretely? How is inclusion now supported, and how does the program succeed in this promotion?
Well, yeah, based on the analysis and when we looked the topics and content of those networking activities, it seems that many of them are tackling the topic of inclusion. So there is a good willingness to bring organizations together, inclusion organizations together, to share that how they can do projects and also how they can actually include inclusion participants to join the program. So in that sense, I feel that there is this way of supporting organizations as well. Like it is there, like many of the net activities is tackling it. And also, I think during the interviews, many of the NA officers said that it's one of the most important priorities. So I would say that based on that analysis and the net officers' interviews, it is on the agenda a lot. But then, of course, you need to check who applied to those activities and who also applies the project funds, like how well the need and willingness is actually coming to the reality. And that, I don't know.
Well, that's a classic question between discourses and practices. How do we tie them together? Thank you very much, Annina. Tanja, you brought up how even the Solidarity Core program, despite its name, fails to fully keep its promise of inclusiveness, as Annina said as well. And you listed things that should change so that such a European program could be far more accessible and perhaps also democratic to young people, despite their backgrounds. What would you say would be the first thing that should change, and perhaps to whom would you especially like to address this critical outcome of your research?
I think the first thing that should change is this distribution of the responsibility. As I also showed on the presentation, I think it's very crucial that this is not only put onto organizations, that at all levels there is more engagement with this, not only to support inclusiveness, but also to support the other levels in supporting inclusiveness. And I think that would help a lot in turning the program more inclusive. And as this, I think, mainly depends on the European Commission and also on the national agencies, I would first of all address them and ask them to look into this.
Thank you, Tanja. What about you, Annina? If you would have all the power, to whom would you address your suggestions or critiques in order to promote inclusiveness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that there is some kind of issue with promoting, definitely. Like the program itself, there is supporting elements, and if you look the aim and goals of the program, you can see that inclusiveness is there definitely. There is a need for using the program with inclusion projects and so on. But why it's not happening so much as we wish? Maybe it is something to do with overall visibility of the program. So we are talking about quite new program anyways. So in that sense, if I would have money and power, I would probably use it for the promotion and really trying to reach out those relevant organizations and work together with them and see where we would get. Yeah.
Thank you for both of you. And perhaps next question would be a little bit more on value base of this program. Annina, your presentation reminded me about the quite classical discussion around the main driver of youth work and youth policy in Europe. And a crucial question, at least in my interpretation in this context, is whether the main driver for the people working with young people in the field of youth work and programs, Erasmus Plus programs, is related to the promotion of young people's identity, social belonging, and collective engagement in the society, or if the primary concern is to invest efficiently in individual young persons' competencies and qualifications, particularly in the educational and labor market. And based on your thematic analysis around Solidarity Core, Annina, it seems that the emphasis has been toward focusing more on issues related to European identities and collective level of the inclusiveness and solidarity rather than employability and entrepreneurship. Am I right with my interpretation? And how would you perhaps elaborate on that?
Yeah, it was an interesting part of the analysis when we looked the content of the activities that has been planned and offered. And based on that, it seems that there's coming more and more activities where they are tackling of European values and identity, and also solidarity and community building and so on. And then there's not so much activities anymore about entrepreneurship skills and so on. And in that sense, it's interesting to think that where it comes from. And well, I would say that maybe it's a signal for the program has changed itself, because this is the new version of the old volunteering program. And now the focus is about solidarity and doing good for communities. So I think the shift is coming also from that narrative that we are talking at the moment. But in this world where we are living, I think it's a very good thing also for the youth work that we are thinking about the youth work through some other eyes than the individual learning and growing. So we can see the growth and the youth work also through the solidarity and working for others. So.
Thank you. I think it's some kind of route for youth work to raise young people together and not only as individuals. I think it's a very good thing to notice also from your analysis. Tanja, how would you like to comment on this, Annina's reflection around this kind of paradox? I don't know whether it's a paradox at all, but how would you like to comment on that based on your analysis and experience?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't call it a paradox. I would rather say that these are two things that go hand in hand. But we've also looked at this issue, how the focus can sometimes move and can be more on one part or another. And well, we didn't come to a final conclusion, I'd say. Of course, the jobs and traineeship strand was discontinued, the humanitarian strand was added. So it could seem that volunteering and collective and belonging, collective identity, impact on communities is gaining more importance. But from the insights from our stakeholders, there were different opinions. Some compared very directly to the European Voluntary Service, also highlighting that they saw a change, that the voluntary service was more about the individual volunteer and their development, and now it's more about the society impact. Some focused more on the continuity between both, so it wasn't that clear. And then we also had some stakeholders complaining that even now, after these changes with the strands, the learning aspect is still too strong, as organizations still have to explain what their volunteers learn or would learn with them when they apply for a quality label. And these stakeholders say that some organizations are really struggling to explain this, because that's not how they usually think about volunteering. So they even said learning is still too strong in this. But so I can't give a final conclusion, but the issue is there. And I would also tend to say that the focus is more moving towards collective identity and impact on communities and less on the individual volunteer.
Thank you. That's a very interesting trend indeed. And now we have the first audience question, and I will take it immediately. What are, in your opinions, opportunities of the program which haven't been exhausted yet or still need to be developed? Who would like to start?
Well, I can start. This is just my first thought when I heard the question. Well, I would say that the one excellent thing about this program is that it goes beyond youth work organizations. Even I love those, but it gives room for those organizations who are not defined to be youth work organizations. So there is a huge potential of bringing in environmental organization, cultural organization, social organization, and I think the power lies on there, like how we can attract them to be more active and cooperate with the youth work issues and so on. So I think this is something that we could do more on, and yeah.
Thank you. A very, very, very important point, new partnerships for the youth work field as well. What about you, Tanja?
Yeah, I agree with Annina. That was also mentioned in our interviews, that it's still a challenge to reach out to these other organizations. In particular, green organizations seem to be still hard to reach in some national contexts, though it depends a lot on the national context, of course. And so there's potential there. And then I would also say that there are further potentials, for example, in the options to have impact on the youth sector and on the volunteering sector as well in the different national countries. So they can develop further. And there are all these ideas of more strategic impact, more strategic development, and the program could give lots of impulses for this. But this is also still needing maybe a bit more time or other inputs so it can happen. So there are also lots of opportunities there. And of course, well, inclusion is a huge opportunity. You mentioned before as well the participation. And I think the participation in the program development itself is also an opportunity to how to develop the program further so it better addresses all these issues together with the relevant stakeholders and with young people. So, well, I'm basically rephrasing the challenges we identified into opportunities here. And yeah, I think there are lots of options. And that's what was also the main idea, that the potential is there. It just needs a bit more to be fully used.
Thank you for your answers, and thank you for the audience for this question. And please, I encourage you to still send the questions. We can take them while we are discussing here. We will examine the program a little bit further from the perspective of monitoring. Tanja, you mentioned that definitions and indicators are one of the core points for development. What indicators are there currently, and what do you think are really needed in the future?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this mainly for the issue with inclusiveness and youth with few opportunities. And here, what we found, for example, is that the definition of youth with few opportunities, it's a bit different in different documents. So there is not one unique definition. But then as well, several stakeholders mentioned that organizations struggle with this definition and that it's difficult for them to identify youth with few opportunities. Sometimes they simply don't know enough about the background of the young people to see that they actually fit one of the diverse categories. And the definition is, of course, very broad, with the ambition to allow everybody who needs additional support to receive this additional support. But if we then use this this very definition and this indicator is indicated by the organizations as a way to see how inclusive the program is, then it's a bit more tricky, because then we don't know, of course, how many young people from different profiles we reach, who are the young people with few opportunities who are more reached, who are less reached. We don't have the data on this at all at the moment. And even for the last program generation, there was the target line of reaching 30% of youth with few opportunities among the participants. And this was outperformed, and it seemed to be very well. But then, of course, we don't know the different groups of youth with few opportunities, who is reached, who is not reached. And if we had more data on this, we could do so much more to reach them and to be more inclusive and to grow even further. So I was basically saying in this context of and not regarding other indicators. So
thank you. Well, this is a very tricky question of how to categorize young people in a how could I say ethically persistent way. It's very good thing to discuss within the framework of all these programs in the Erasmus+. Annina, you said that one of the points of development would be qualitative monitoring, and it's insufficient. What is needed to develop the qualitative monitoring you are thinking about? What would you say?
Yeah, based on the analysis that we did, it's very clear that the individual single activities are very well evaluated. Collect feedback from participants, the team who organize it have a reflections and so on. So in that sense, the net activities are very well evaluated and reflected. But then if you think the whole picture of networking activities, then there was the message from the NA officers that maybe it should be monitored better as a whole, like how it serves some strategic approaches and how it supports the program and what is the directions where we should go and so on. So in that sense, it feels that there is something missing, like in this a bit upper level, like how to see the whole puzzle, I would say. And in there, I would probably, I don't know how much the Commission is collecting the information and analyzing the data, but probably they are also collecting information from the NAs and so on. And I would say that in the world where we are rushing ahead, like, we are all the time going forward, sometimes we just forget to stop and see what we did and how we did, and maybe that can help us to think the future as well. So I think this is the part based on the analysis that it's a bit missing, the monitoring the whole puzzle of networking activities.
Thank you. So we can conclude based on your speeches that some kind of multi-method monitoring is still needed more and more, where qualitative and quantitative analyses are somehow integrated. Thank you. And I think we could move a little bit more towards the questions around participation and engagement. They are core principles also when we think about the concept of solidarity in general and also in particular in this program. You have both worked in the field of youth work for a long time, and you have engaged in Erasmus Plus programs in very diverse ways. Based on your studies and professional experiences, how do you see the potential of this kind of particular program in articulating solidarity claims of the people in the youth field? Can we really learn and understand more about the critical changes that young people or people working with young people want to push forward in contemporary Europe, both locally, nationally, and transnationally? And perhaps in order to elaborate your reflections, how do you see your own role or the role of the RAIN network, where we have very important and experienced researchers in hearing and take up these critical voices in our public discussions in Europe around these programs? Who would like to start this more general reflection around the program?
Shall I take it this time first?
Yes, Tanja, please.
Well, regarding the motivations of young people, we can of course learn a lot from the Solidarity Corps program. In particular, the solidarity projects are already showing us now a lot where young people put their emphasis. And before, I think I said that it's in many national contexts tricky to reach environmental organizations, but then we also found that many solidarity projects look into environmental issues. So that clearly shows as well where their importance are and where they lie the topic. And the role of the RAY network, well, I think as in our research, we usually look at different stakeholders, and then we also reproduce their criticisms and claims. So we also work as amplifiers and give a voice and give visibility to their voices. So that's one part of it. And then also as we look at the different levels, the different stakeholders, the different perspective, we also look at the official documents, of course, what are the official objectives, the program logic, and so on. We also combine these, and then I think we can also offer further ideas and recommendations from this combination that is maybe not that accessible when you only look at it from one perspective. And I think that's also part of what we do and how we can contribute to this.
Thank you, Tanja. Very, very well elaborated reply on this large question. What about Annina? What would you like to say about this?
Yeah, I agree with Tanja. I think the core Solidarity Core program itself is an excellent tool to hear the voices of the field, voices of the young people and what's going on. And for that, I think the Solidarity project are a very interesting tool because it's implemented in a local needs and with local young people and so on. So I think I think this is the amazing opportunity to hear what's going on and see the signals and so on. About my role, well, that I don't know, but if I can have a wishes for the RAY network instead, I don't know. I have this idea of having a dialogue through the projects, like when we have this solidarity project there that young people are applying all over to Europe, and we could check the topics of those projects, what's going on, what are the voices that are coming through the projects, and that could be formed the way that you could send it to the commission, and that way you would get the dialogue between the solidarity project, well, not directly from the participants there, but in a project level, and you could take the message out from there and send it to the commission, and maybe they can use it when they form the next edition of the program and so on. And that could probably create more impact and effectiveness of the program. I don't know, but I think it's something very interesting to see that what the solidarity is when you give it to the field and they are starting to make the project. So I think this is an interesting topic that maybe you already have something for this, but yeah.
So to conclude your replies, I think that we have a huge potential in this particular program in strengthening some kind of intergenerational dialogue and democracy also in Europe, if this program will be successful, fully successful. Thank you. And then we have a new audience question. Very important one. It has to do with inclusiveness also at the regional level in Europe. How can we promote the European Solidarity Corps program in the regions where the program is less popular? Which can be the stakeholders that can help on promoting the program a bit more? Important question. Who would like to reflect on that? Tanja, please.
Well, I can basically repeat the input from our stakeholders we interviewed, because many of them had very different ideas, and the strategies were also quite different from the different national agencies. There was not one overarching general strategy. And some ideas, it depends, of course, on the concrete context, but some ideas that were mentioned were working with multipliers a lot, schools, sport clubs, youth work organizations, also with municipalities. One option could also be to work with services attending youth with certain needs, for example, disabilities, social welfare receivers. This is particularly thinking, again, of inclusiveness, again, of youth with few opportunities, but if it's more regarding certain regions, then it would also be about reaching out to multipliers active in these regions so they can multiply the program. And then, of course, organizations and associations working with specific profiles like the deaf community or with migration backgrounds and so on and so on. And to reach young people particularly, there are the people saying social media, social networks are the key, and then it's more and more the peer-to-peer, not support but promotion, so that they can identify especially as well with the peers. So regarding youth with few opportunities, this would also be important to have more young people with few opportunities in this peer-to-peer promotion, so they can identify with these young people. And here it would also be interesting to reach these regions then where it's less known, so they get to know other young people, maybe from other regions, but still with similar interests, so they can engage. And then it could actually be combined. If it's difficult to physically reach these regions, you could also share these stories through social media and other channels and have the multipliers in the region sharing them, so they can reach out. But actually, I'd love to hear more ideas in this. So maybe even the person who asked the question has some ideas she also wants to share through Facebook or Mentimeter, and of course, Annina. So I'd be happy to hear more from your side.
Thank you, Tanja, and a good idea to share the ideas also in Facebook afterwards. And Annina, what would you like to say?
Well, based on my experience, not based on the analysis, but based on my experience, I have learned that solidarity has many faces, and it means different things, depends on where you are. So I would take that as a starting point. So I would think about the organization in my region that who are working closely with topics of solidarity and what it means in my content. And approach them, because they already work with this topic. So I could maybe partner up with them and then try to cooperate together, and that could work. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for the person who posed the question, very important one. And now I think we must go to our final discussion on global attentiveness, which I think is a good way to conclude our dialogue today. As I stated in the beginning, solidarity as a concept has always been connected also to the community that crosses different borders, and you have been discussing this all the time throughout our dialogue. But my last question concerns the global attentiveness of Erasmus Plus programs, notably that of Solidarity Core. We know that most of the challenges faced by young people today, also in Europe, are increasingly global by nature. Likewise, according to various youth studies, young people's faith in the future is weakest when we look at the future of the Earth. Climate crisis as one of the most biggest challenge for young people as well. And of course, we should also remember that around 90% of the world's youth live in the countries in the global south. So how do you see the potential of the Solidarity Core program from the perspective of the global responsibility in the youth field in Europe? Or alternatively, from the point of view of strengthening young people's hope for the future of the Earth? We would like to start this concluding debate of our dialogue.
Well, I can start. I think it's a difficult question, and I would probably start from how you can support young people to deal with these issues and deal maybe the anxiety and the fear that comes up with these global issues and crises that we are facing. And I would say in general advice that it usually relieves your feelings when you start to act and do something concrete. And in that way, the program is a great tool that you can actually be involved. You can do things that you see are important, even they are local or even they are in a European level, but you can actually contribute your own actions and so on. So in that sense, there is a place for this program. But I don't know how it will solve the global issues, then that I don't know.
We will leave it for the future. Tanja, what about you?
Yeah,
words.
I also agree that that it's a very huge issue that not only the youth programs or the Solidarity Corps should address this, and I also think that and this is also one of the stakeholders also mentioned this contradiction between the European Solidarity Corps funding sustainable projects, but then other European policies going into other directions. And here I also think that what would give young people more hope for the Earth's future would be having a better future for this Earth. So if we would improve the conditions so that the Earth would be better, young people would feel better about it, certainly. And here I wouldn't overburden the youth programs as the ones solving this, but also request further involvement on other levels. And I'm also remembering in September at the Ray Network meeting, we had a panel, and one of the panelists was Anya. She was speaking about sustainability. And she said that what is really important is that when you talk about climate issues, you shouldn't be talking about end of the world scenarios, which are really depressing people and can even put them off from engaging in this. But you should rather speak about how great the future could be and create this positive visions of sustainable, participatory, inclusive futures, societies where everybody can have their part and we are all in this together. And this is then like a positive vision. All of us, not only young people, but everybody can engage in achieving them and without risking dropping into a climate depression about it. And I really like this take. And from what she said in her work, it's really working. It's really a way how young people engage, and this engagement can be really positive, and they are not completely frustrated and burned out thinking that whatever we do, it will never be enough. But I still believe that things have to happen as well on other levels, so this can change.
Thank you, Tanja and Annina. I think these words are very good words to stop our discussion. Thank you very, very much for your interesting reflections. And thank you also for the audience for joining us and for posing very important questions for us. And this was the second Youth Research Dialogue this year. Stay tuned. The next dialogue will take place again in June. Thank you.
Thank you also from my side, Lena. Great job. I'm really happy to have you in our team. Also, Domagoj, thank you for, as always, the digital facilitation. I don't have a lot to say because, Lena, you already said we have our Youth Research Dialogue on the 20th of June, actually. So please check out our website, our social media channels for any updates. And yeah, Domagoj, you also want to have a last word?
Yeah, thank you also from my side. In case if you would like to share this with your colleagues, we have good news. The stream will be really available afterwards for you to share and to watch again. So we invite you to use this opportunity. Yeah, thank you so much and see you on the next Youth Research Dialogue. Bye.
Bye.